Here are the highlights of ISCOBAL's 2025 Release 2. We have a new look and feel theme, Flat LAF. This will easily make your applications look modern and up-to-date. We have lots of new graphical control feature additions. We've added support of Java 21 to our popular web client product. We've added dark mode to our graphical debugger, and our development environments have improved significantly. So let's dig into those. Let's start with the new look and feel. Adding a look and feel to your configuration is the quickest way to change the overall look of your application. And the Flat LAF not only gives you a modern, clean look, it lets you offer your customers light and dark modes, both in console and thin client run applications. The themes options are light and dark, IntelliJ LAF, which is an alternate light mode, and Darkula LAF, which is an alternate dark mode. If you use a Flat LAF style, you should also set ISCOBAL GUI native style to true. Now this is going to apply an LAF-dependent border to all the controls with a boxed style, meaning entry fields, combo boxes, etc. And currently, the LAF doesn't set your main window colors. If you want to apply the look and feel colors to your window, you can use $getFromLAF to pull the look and feel colors and apply them in your display statement, just like the example shown on the screen. This version adds several GUI enhancements. Like the grid rows in past versions, now when a mouse hovers over a row in a tree view or a list box, it can change color if you set the rollover color value. Give your users more information with pop-up hints for each tab, as well as the power to shape their displays by providing an X close button with the Close Buttons property. This will remove the tab from the display. The grid previously had two options to respond to scrolling: load one page or load a set amount of records. And this helps make the grid data available to the user faster than loading all of the records of a large file. In 2025 R2, we fine-tuned that access by setting Event Data 1 to tell you what user action triggered the loading event. You can act differently depending on the action that the user takes. For instance, this code here means that the arrow or tab key will load just a few more records. Page down or a drag on the scroll bar will load a larger chunk of records, and Control and End will load all of the records. Improve your date entry controls with a button to automatically choose today's date. This is a great one to add with code injection in your properties file, as well as the close buttons on the tab control. Here are the statements to add to your compiler properties if you want to add these two new features without changing your code. Web Client has had a built-in Jetty servlet container since we introduced it. We've updated our Jetty version to 12, but Jetty 12 only supports Java 17 and 21. So in order for us to continue supporting Java 1.8 and Java 11, the Web Client will use Tomcat instead of Jetty for those versions. Now this is just for your information. You don't have to do anything. Web Client does all of this automatically. Do you wish your applications would take less time to start up when run in Web Client? Now you can keep pre-loaded instances of your application ready for users to connect to. This cuts down on the time that it takes to load the JVM. Now here in this screenshot, we've set the Web Client's app configuration for 4 idle instances. When one is used, another will start up so that it keeps 4 ready at all times. You can see them in the Sessions tab with a session ID starting with Demo Idle. You can customize this in pre-launch to either just load the JVM, which is the best case for applications that are past user-specific parameters, or to start the application by calling its main class. When you use clustering to spread the Web Client load over 2 or more servers, it's common to start one session on the same computer as the cluster server is started on. We've added a new command to start both at the same time when you're testing or in a development environment, so you don't need 2 separate command prompts, one for the cluster and one for the server. Just add the -cluster session pool property to your Web Client cluster command. And one of the strengths of the Web Client is that you can run in a non-Windows environment, like smartphones and tablets. In 2025 R2, users can zoom in and out with a pinch gesture, adding to the modern feel of your application. Now, every COBOL version adds compatibility with other COBOL dialects to make it easier to convert to ISCOBOL. In 2025 R2, we've added 4 intrinsic functions native to IBM COBOL: bit of, bit to char, hex of, and hex to char. We've also added the Microfocus COBOL ability to create your own function. Our IBM compatibility support for currency symbols has improved to help international applications that need to use more than one currency sign. This includes support for new syntax with picture symbol. Use ISCOBOL call cancel hook to redirect a call to a different program and modify the parameters passed. So for instance, if your program calls program A with parameters ABC and 1, 2, 3, you can write a hook program to redirect the call to program B with parameters ZYX and 987. This means you don't need to change your program code or have more than one copy for different scenarios or companies. Now, this hook program is a class ID as opposed to a program ID, and there's an example in our samples menu that you can use as a starting point for your own call handler. When you're reading a JSON stream, sometimes it doesn't match your COBOL group structure that your program has to catch it. Now that isn't a problem with the new ISCOBOL JSON parse read on mismatch. Just set it to 1. Set ISCOBOL disp sign to false to remove the separate numerical sign on a character display. ISCOBOL GUI JavaBeans serialization check lets you check JavaBeans to make sure they can run in a server-client environment even when you're testing in a standalone environment. For databases that support isolation levels, you can now specify a level with the ISCOBOL JDBC transaction isolation. If you use the file index file name equals DCIC to set individual files to DBMaker, in 2025 you can set this routine, ISCOBOL DCI routines use connector, to true to use the thread safe DCI connector instead of the default DCI routine, which is not thread safe. And previously there were only 3 settings for ISCOBOL file errors OK. 0 to terminate the run unit, 1 to continue the program, and 2 to continue the program only if a file status is defined for the file. Now we've added a 4th value, 3, which is a limited version of the 2 value. With 3, the program continues if the error status is 30 or below, for instance, if the file isn't found or the resource is locked, but it terminates if the error is above 30, which is a more serious error. This variable works with the -cm compile switch because it's a microfocus behavior that we're adding compatibility for. If you use Database Bridge to access SQL Server, you'll want to be sure to check your setting of ISCOBOL JDBC cursor concurrency. We used to suggest setting this value to 1009, but in 2025 we made some adjustments to the generated code in Database Bridge to improve performance when this value is set to 1007. So the new recommendation is to set these 3 variables on the screen with the 2025 R2 or later versions for better performance with SQL Server and Database Bridge. If a thin client connection has a problem with connectivity, it's reported after a certain period of time, and this time is OS dependent. However, now you can control the amount of time by adding the -timeout to your isClient command line, or iscobol.timeout to your ISTC file or properties file. The value 2 here on the screen means that the connection will time out in 2 seconds. Now that same setting has been added to Turbo Run, which is a method to limit the startup time of the JVM when you need to run multiple runtime sessions in a sequence. You add timeout to your trun command line or trun_timeout to the environment in your trun scripts. There's a few new improvements to our graphical debugger environment in this version. The first is the availability of a dark mode. On the menu bar, click on Look and Feel, and then Flat LAF, and then Dark. Along with the dark and light mode settings, you can fine-tune the colors through the Fonts and Colors settings. Click on Settings in the menu bar, and then Customize, and then Fonts and Colors. You can see on the screen where I've changed the Command History Lists font and background color to yellow. We have some new IDE methods that you can use on the command line. Now this automates importing from AccuBench, Totem, or WOW, as well as to generate and build projects. When you're creating a new project and you want to automate it, for instance, if you want to add a new developer and have his project set up consistent to everyone else's, you can execute command line commands to create a new project and populate it with COBOL programs and FS file section and LS linkage section copy files. In 2025 R2, we're adding data layout files and screen programs to that functionality. And the same has been done for your WOW program files. This example line here creates a new workspace and a project called My App, and it imports the data layout files from a folder called myapp/idl. When you're designing a screen in the Screen Painter, it's common to spend time aligning controls with each other on the screen. It's easier to do that now with a new alignment toolbar. We've added workspace support for our VS Code extension. This means you can have more than one project open in a workspace, and each project can have separate compile and run options, as well as different Java versions. Now, I've highlighted the areas on the screenshot where you can see what mode you're in, and how to toggle that mode between debug and release, where to set compile options that are common to both modes, and where to set compile options that are specific to the debug mode. Settings specific to the release mode are farther down on the page. We've added remote debugging ability to VS Code too, so now you can debug programs running on a different machine or called from another language. A new entry in the isUpdaters configuration files is used to add third-party jar files that your COBOL application might need. Jiffy can now see and filter records that are in multi-table files. And the isCOBOL Program Profiler can be pinpointed to include or exclude specific programs or paragraphs, making it easier to profile programs that have user input, for instance, or let you just profile one specific paragraph that you want to focus on. So those are the changes in 2025 R2. Let's take a closer look at some of those. Let's start, as we always do, looking in the New Features part of the Samples program. The first to look at is the tree view and the list box rollover. So here we've set the rollover color to green, and as I roll the mouse you can see it change to green. Now that's the tree view. Let's check out the table view, which is a table in a tree view format, the list box, and a checklist. And you can see how this is done by viewing the source here. Let's look at the new tab control changes. So if I hover over these pages, a hint will pop up. And you see the X also appears. And if I want to get rid of a page, let's get rid of page 2. Just click on the X. Now I want to look at the LAF and compare how all of our LAFs look. So I went into Sample, Extend and Customize, GUI LAF, and LAF Comparison. And first I'm going to show you the 4 that we've had for a while, so you can see the differences there. There's the default. There's the metal. Here's Nimbus and GTK. So those are the 4 that we've had for a while. Let's look at the difference between those and the flat LAF. I'll start with the light. And notice how the menu bar has disappeared. This looks much more modern. And the buttons have changed. And everything's a little bit cleaner. Let's take a look at the dark one. Here's the flat LAF dark style. Now we'll look at the Darkula. So here's the 2 dark modes side by side. You can see a little bit of difference. And now the IntelliJ. And here's the 2 flat light looks. So quite a difference, and all I had to do was add something to my command line. No program changes were needed. Okay, let's look at the IDE. By the way, I should mention that if you want the IDE to run in dark mode, you can do that through the Eclipse properties. So go to Windows Preferences, General, and click on Appearance. And here's your theme. So it's easy to make this dark or light, as well as changing the colors and fonts. Okay, let's look at what we have new in 2025. I'm going to run something in the debugger, and I want it to open up in the same debugger that you get when you run ISRun or ISCrun. So I went to Windows Preferences and down to ISCOBOL and Run Debug. And I clicked on Use External ISCOBOL Debugger. Okay, so I'm going to run customers in Debug. So I'll right-click on it. Debug as an ISCOBOL application. And here's the debugger. Now, of course, we're in light mode. So let's set it to dark mode. Go to Look and Feel, Flat LAF, click on Dark. And there's dark mode. I find this font a little bit small for me, so I can also go into Settings, Customize, Fonts and Colors. And I'm going to make my font bigger. That's pretty big. I'll say OK. And now I can read it better. And that's what's new in 2025 Release 2. I hope you give it a try. If you have any questions, you can contact us at the information on the screen or at support@variant.com. Thank you.